Hi guys, Jordan from P&P Campers. I'm just going to do your handover video on your Dethleffs Sunlight. So it's 2011 and it's based on a Ford Transit. So it's all really nicely, easily laid out under the bonnet. But we've got your brake fluid over here on the left hand side here, attached to the servo just down the back. Power steering fluid is this one just here at the front. Engine oil dipstick is this one just here with the big yellow top. You top up your engine oil from this little cap just inside here. What else have we got? Your engine battery itself, you've actually got two engine batteries. They both sit under the driver's seat. And so if you need to jump start the vehicle, you basically just turn this little bit down here until it's in line, take it off. And that's your positive terminal, basically. So if you want to jump start the van, positive terminal goes on there. And then if I was you, I would use the negative, which would be this engine hoist here, probably. Goes up to me. That one, or the actual, it does tell you here, the actual earth. Yeah, actually that is that. So that's saying that the actual earth it wants you to use to jump start the vehicle is this engine hoist just here. We've also got your engine coolant, which is this reservoir over here on the right, and your washer fluid reservoir just there. You can see there everything's nicely topped up to exactly where it needs to be, because we've had the full service done on it. ECU and everything sort of electrical for the van is all just in there. Fuel filter is this one, just sits here at the back. But yeah, other than that, it's all pretty straightforward. The paint code is just there, so frozen white, if you ever needed that. So yeah, that's about it really for the under the bonnet. Your diesel filling point is this one just here on the passenger side, on the near side. Ignition key goes in there to open that up. Freshwater inlet is this one just here. You can lock that up. So if I'll do that now actually, just whilst we're here. So turn it basically like that. And then the key goes in, turns and comes out. So that's it. These are your fridge vents. So if you want to double check that your fridge was definitely lit up on gas, you can just put your hand over here. You should be able to feel a little bit of heat coming out from there, not a huge amount, but there's also another way, the main way of checking that it's lit, which is on the inside, which I'll show you in just a minute. We've got this vent just here, which is actually the vent for your oven, if I'm not mistaken. So when we get inside, you'll be able to see there, basically that's just a little tube that comes from the back of the oven straight to here. There's a little bit of a breathing vent for it. Your hookup point is this one just here. So literally that's when, if you want to hook your van up and use anything 240 volt, then that's what you need to do that. I'll show you how all that sort of works on the inside when we get in there. This is your external boiler vent. So I've got the boiler lit up on gas at the moment because I've got the heating and hot water on. So I'll show you that working on the inside. But putting my hand underneath there, really, really nice hot air coming out from there. And eventually you'll start to get a little bit of condensation building up just down there as well. You can probably see it already starting to kind of build up a little bit. Just so you know, that's completely normal. In fact, it will start to drip after a little while as well. So just so you know that. Bike rack and ladder, it's all there if you want to use it at the back. This big locker up here obviously takes you into your humongous garage. If you want to use it as a garage, you know, it's up to you. But at the minute it's set up as the bunk beds, so that's that. Loads of storage underneath there, and the awning winder is there as well. I have had the awning out and it wound out lovely. Put the legs down, made sure everything worked properly, and it does. I just thought I'd point out to you as well, over the years the catches and things have obviously broken, and instead of just replacing the original ones, for some reason somebody has decided to try and fit new ones, and they've obviously broken as well. The original catches would have been this style, and so what I've done is, you see there, this one's broken, the same as that back one there. So what I've done is I've basically gone around and replaced the original style ones. So this locker here catches in here properly, the door catches up there really nicely. This one down here is this one, and that works really well. So everything works, but the trouble is I started taking all of these off, and then realised that actually when I was taking them off, it was just leaving big holes everywhere. So unfortunately I just have to leave them there. They don't do anything, but it is kind of, it's a shame that I couldn't take them off completely, but obviously there'd be holes in the way then, so you know, you can do with that what you will, but you know, unfortunately I couldn't really do a huge amount with it. But they all work anyway. I've replaced them so that they all work. The little this bit down here was snapped when I got to it as well, so I've put a new hinge on there. There was also a completely different style setup in the gas locker, so I've had to fit, basically before there should have been a bulkhead regulator like this, but instead, for some reason, again, I don't really understand why, but there was just a pipe coming from here rather than a bulkhead regulator like this. So I've actually made this pipe up and fitted a proper bulkhead regulator in here so that you're actually legal, and obviously I couldn't have passed it off otherwise, so I had to do it anyway. But so you got a nice brand spanking new bulkhead regulator there, brand new pigtail on here as well, so you've got a good few years on that. Turning the bottle on is anti-clockwise around to the left, and turning it off is clockwise around to the right. Obviously switch this off before you start driving. You've got space for 2 of these 6 kilo propane bottles in here if you wanted it, and I'm not sure, but you might even have space for a 13 in there. I don't actually know, but yeah, but that's the gas locker. What else have we got? So I'll show you around the cab briefly. So it's all pretty straightforward in the cab, to be honest. It's all obviously just standard Ford stuff, but it's a really nice spec in the cab itself. So you've got your main lights here, so side lights, main beam. It will make that noise if you've got the door open, by the way, if you try and switch the lights on. Electric adjusting mirrors from up here. Obviously you've got your electric windows from there. Cruise control is all controlled by the actual steering wheel, so you turn it on and off on these 2 switches, and then you can set the speed, resume, all that sort of stuff. It's all there ready for you to use, and obviously that'll all work because it's all original Ford stuff. It's not sort of aftermarket or anything like that. I'll just shut the door because I've got the heating on. Nice doubled in JVC head unit. Doubled in meaning the height is a double sized radio there. Looks like it says there Bluetooth, DAB, so you've got, you know, the lot there really. USB point down here as well. Okay, so you've basically got everything you can imagine on that if you did want to use it. All the heater controls are down here, so fan speed setting, where the actual air goes to, and the actual temperature, obviously. You've also got this bit at the back here, which is actually like a controller for your radio. 6-speed manual gearbox, obviously, as opposed to the 5-speed gearbox, which, you know, quite often you're in 5th gear and you'll find on the motorway you're sort of desperate for another gear. So this being here on the 6th gear is really helpful. And you'll find when you get on the motorway that it's so much better. These transit vans, just, you know, they're built like bricks. They're so solid, nice quality, sort of strong engines as well. We don't tend to get any issues whatsoever with any of the gearboxes or engines in these. So you'll be absolutely fine with this, especially with 42,000 miles on it. It's nothing. Reverse is lift up, over and up to the top left, although I'm sure you've probably already done that. I'm pretty sure you test drove it, so you should know how to do that. Hazard lights, just there. And your ESP, you don't need to worry about that. That's all just kind of traction control stuff. You just leave that as it is. I believe this vehicle, these transits, this age of transit, are all rear wheel drive as well. So just, you know, definitely don't play with that ESP, especially if you're on a sort of a muddy track, or, you know, on a campsite or something. Just sort of bear that in mind, that it can be a little bit more slippy when it's the rear wheel drive vehicles. But there you go, it's not a problem. Reversing camera is up there. I'm pretty certain that only works when the ignition's on, so that's probably why. So yeah, I think that's about it. Got some storage up here and a little bit of 12-volt power, so if you wanted to plug in a phone charger or something, and you didn't want your phone to be in sight, which is obviously a good thing, you can plug it in up there and close it down. So yeah, I think that's about it for the cab really. I'll just spin around and show you the back. So obviously you've got your ladder to get up to the top of the bed here, and the bed itself does lift up like so. We'll leave it down for a minute. Right, so to be honest, the van is nice and simple. There's not really a huge amount to it. You've got your main little control panel up here, all you have to do to actually get it to all come on is just switch this button on here. So at the moment I've pressed the up button and the green light has come on, so that tells me that the 12 volt is on. If I push that button down, essentially what will happen is it will just sort of cut off all the 12 volt stuff. So any fans, any lights, any ignition, all that sort of stuff, it all just goes off. All right, so that's your main 12 volt on and off switch. And the only other one you've got, any other thing you need to worry about is this one here in the middle. So that's your battery level reader, basically. So all you've got is green, yellow, and red. So if I press up, you see there's a battery in the back end. So that tells you your leisure battery level on green, and down is the battery at the front. So that's your engine battery level, and that's green as well. So that is literally it. That just tells you your batteries are completely fine. The leisure battery itself sits in this cupboard down here, and we had to replace it. That was the reason why basically nothing was working in the back of the van. The leisure battery was completely flat, and we couldn't charge it back up because it was too far gone. So the leisure battery sits down there, and it is, like I said, brand new. So yeah, so as long as you turn your 12 volt switch on up there, you're good to go. The other thing is we've also had to replace your pump, so you've got a brand new submersible pump down there. So essentially, turn your 12 volt power on up there, and then the first thing you want to do is come over here and just try your tap. So pull the lever up, that's on the hot side over to the left, and straight away you'll see there's no air coming out through there. So that basically just tells me now that there's no water, there's no air inside the boiler or any air in the system at all. So I'll switch that off. It's a submersible pump, so it'll only run when you pull the tap up. There's a little micro switch in each one of the taps. So essentially when you pull the tap up, it sends power to the pump runs, put the tap down, pump turns off. The reason I was saying about doing that, so switching the power on, coming here, pulling the hot water on the sink, is because if you don't do that, there's no way of knowing that your boiler is full of water. And the other reason I'm saying that is because if the boiler is completely empty of water, which I'll show you how to do in a second, if the boiler is empty and you try and light the boiler up and heat the water up inside it that isn't there, essentially you'll run into issues where it will get too hot and you'll start burning out wires and things like that. Okay, so it's really important to go here and just double check that your boiler is full before you start doing what I'm going to show you in a minute. All right, but I'll get to that in a second. So that's your power up there. The fridge is probably the next important part. So if I just show you, I've got the fridge lit up on gas at the moment. And so you can see here, this is your selector switch for the fridge. So the selector switch basically just selects which energy to use to make the fridge go cold, basically. So you see there, I've got the actual switch down towards the very bottom, and that's over there at gas. All right, so if you want to light it up, let me just switch it off so I can show you it from scratch. So where it is now, it's completely off. Nothing's working on it whatsoever, so the fridge is completely off. If I had a hookup plugged into the van, I could go to this one just here. It'll pull about 0.5 amp, and after a couple of hours, the fridge will be cold. So basically, when you change to there with a hookup in the van, the electric element in the back of the fridge heats up and then in turn cools the fridge down. If the engine was running and the fridge was already cold, you can use this one just here. So that's your 12 volts. So that's for when your engine's running and when you're driving. The reason I say it has to be cold already is because the 12 volt symbol only keeps the fridge cold. It doesn't get the fridge cold on its own. It's not powerful enough. So the fridge already has to be cold, with everything inside it already cold, for you to use this 12 volt for when you're driving. And then when you get to where you're going, you can switch back over to one of the other two. So like I said, if you've got a hookup in the van, you literally, all you have to do is just select this one here and it will start to cool the fridge down. If you don't have a hookup, you'd want to use your gas. So all you have to do is go all the way down to the bottom for gas. On the right hand side, you've got a piezo igniter. So that's this button just here. So it's a little bit noisy, but they're all the same. When you push this button in here and push this piezo igniter in at the same time, you'll notice you get a little flame in your little peephole down there. There you go. So you see a nice little blue flame in there. Keep a hold of the button for a minute. So I'm still holding on to it. Keep holding, and then let go. So I've let go of that button now, see? and it's lit up still. See the nice blue flame in there? Don't know if you can see it properly still. There you go. So that's a nice blue flame in there. And then after the same sort of amount of time, you know, a couple of hours or so, the fridge will be nice and cold, just like it would have been on the electric hookup. So that's how you use it on gas. If you want to switch it off, literally just turn the selector either off or choose one of the other two. So your oven just here. So like I said to you, you've got that vent on the outside, which basically just comes straight from that back part there. You need a clicker to light this up, and all you need to do to actually light it up is click down the bottom at the back and push in and round to the left with that. That basically just allows the gas to come through, and then after a couple of seconds, the oven will light up, and then you can do what you like. You've got a couple of power sockets, one here and one here. If I'm honest, I think they're the only ones in the entire van, because it's an import vehicle. They don't normally have many, if any at all. So that's what that is. You've got a 12-volt power switch just here. These 4 dials just here in the middle are... Oh, just switch that off for a minute because it's really hot. These 4 dials just here are all of your gas isolators. So essentially what it means is that if you had a problem, or if you thought, for example, if you thought the oven was leaking gas, or if you thought the fridge was leaking gas or something like that, you can come to here. So for example, if you're on holiday or whatever, I mean, obviously let us know if you get any problems, obviously, and we'll sort them for you. But if you were on holiday and you had no other option and you thought there was a problem, or you're worried about something, if you thought the fridge was leaking gas, you come to this symbol here, that's your fridge one, and just isolate the gas like that. That's literally it. So right now, absolutely no gas will be going to the fridge. It completely isolates it. This one's your oven, this one's your boiler, this one's your cooker. So if you thought there was a problem, you can isolate them from there. You absolutely do not need to do that just every time you leave the van. Please don't do that, because you'll run into so many problems. 9 times out of 10, when you do that, you'll struggle to get the gas to come back to that appliance. It's just they just get a bit sort of confused. So leave them like that. Turning the gas bottle off in the locker before you drive, and when you get out of the van, is fine, because when you turn that bottle off, everything's isolated, if that makes sense. So yeah, don't worry about doing that unless you have a problem. All right. The boiler sits in this lower cupboard down here. If I just show you, it's really, really important. This is the most important and expensive part in this entire motorhome. So you do have to look after it, otherwise it will sort of play up and give you jip. Well, you don't have to do much to keep on top of it. It's nice and simple, but the only things I need to tell you is it is so important to do what I was saying about turning the power on and just putting the hot water through there first. Because if, for example, it gets too cold, if it gets to kind of like, 2 degrees or something like that, you've got this little valve just in here, the little red bit. If that's in its down position, basically, if it gets to 2 degrees, that will just drop out. That will drop all the water out of the boiler. So it's an automatic dropout valve. And the reason it does that is because if the boiler is completely full up of water and it freezes, then essentially what will happen is it will freeze up, expand, and then all the little water pipes dotted around the van will crack and sort of burst, and things inside the boiler will go wrong, and then you'd be looking at a couple of £1,000 at least to replace this. So important to keep on top of that. If you find that you open this cupboard up one day, well, there you go. I mean, the reason that it's so important to do that tap thing is because if you pour the hot water through with the pump on and no water comes out, and there's water coming out underneath the van, that means that this is in its down position. And then all you have to do is come in here and lift it up. All right. But if you try and light the boiler up, which I'll show you how to do in a sec, but if you try and light the boiler up without doing that, and the boiler is empty, you'll also run into other issues where it gets completely way too hot, and things will start to sort of burn out, and it just gets a bit messy. So just make sure that you look after this. You only have to do those 2 things that I've just told you about. Make sure that it's full of water before you start trying to use it, but also, you know, it will drop out when it needs to. So yeah, so keep your eye on that. Okay, so if you want to use the heating and hot water, somebody's written on the wall there telling you exactly how it works, but I will just run through it with you anyway, because that's it's kind of true, but yeah, a bit more to it than that really. So it's Trumatic C, so it's a combi boiler basically. Trumatic C standing for combi. So essentially what it means, it's not like a combi boiler at home. If you pull the hot water, if you turn this on and then pull the hot tap after 5 minutes, nothing will happen. It doesn't heat the water up on demand, if that makes sense. There's a tank inside the boiler, about 10 litres, and by putting that hot water through the tap, it keeps that tank in there topped up. So basically, by putting the hot water on, by doing this, by going either up 1 for 40 degrees or up 2 for 60, all you're doing is heating up the water inside the boiler, all right? When you pull the hot tap, it does replenish the water inside the boiler. It basically draws it out, and then more just keeps it constantly topped up. So yeah, so going up 1 is 40 and up 2 is 60 degrees of hot water. All right, the boiler's just lit up straight away there. And then essentially after about half an hour, 40 minutes or so, you'll have nice hot water there. Back to the middle is off. If you go 1 down, you'll get heating. So essentially, very similar kind of thing. It's all in the same box, but basically there's a gas flame in there that lights up, and a sort of a fan that pumps around the air to all of these little circular vents around the vehicle. So after about 5 to 10 minutes or so, you'll have nice hot air pumping out through these vents. The only other way to do it is if you want to heat the van up and heat the water up, you go down 1 more and you'll get heating and hot water. So sometimes on the older vans, it will say summer setting up, winter setting down. So summer pointing up is hot water only with no heating, and winter pointing down is obviously heating and hot water. So that's that. I hope that makes sense. It's all pretty, you know, it's pretty straightforward. You get the hang of using that really quickly. There's nothing technical about it really. It's just getting to grips with what everything does. You got this little bit in here, which is for your external waste tap, which I'll show you in just a second because I forgot to show you that on the outside. And your RCD and MCBs are just down here in this little consumer unit. Right, you've also got cooker over here, so you will need an igniter of some description to light these up, just like you do the oven. But yeah, I think that's about it really. I'll show you in the bathroom. So you've got obviously a shower over here on the left hand side and tap just here. Neither of these two are leaking whatsoever, and they've got good pressure at them after this new pump's being fitted. The toilet itself is very simple. You quite literally just press this button, the pump will just pump fresh water around, and then you drain it out into the cassette using this little red grey lever. So open into the cassette, close back over. It's really important that you close that back over because, and by the way, your light switch is just under here. It's really important that you close that back over, because if you don't close it, you won't be able to take the cassette out from outside. It's like locked in place when it's closed. So that's why you want to do that. Switch your lights off. I'll do that in a minute. Switch that light off as well. And I can just show you last thing. I forgot to show you, I forgot to put the bit on. But if you want to drain out your wastewater, put this little lever bar on here and then just turn it like that, and you'll see the water come out. So that there is your wastewater. I'll close it back over for now so it doesn't start splashing around when you're driving, but just turn it back, take it off, and that's it, all closed up. So the main things you want to do, like I said, keep on top of that boiler on the ways that I showed you. Make sure that you switch your gas off before you start driving. But yeah, I mean, otherwise I think that's about it. I mean, it's not a huge amount to, it's a pretty straightforward, simple vehicle. You you know, there was a few bits and pieces that we had to do, but at least now, you know, everything's sort of new and fresh, so you don't need to worry about much at all. It's all pretty straightforward and simple. The main bits and pieces in there all work perfectly well. You know, the boiler, I hadn't had to touch the boiler once because it was working perfectly. So, yeah. Right, so I think I've shown you everything I can. If there's anything I've missed out or anything you want going over again, you just let us know. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.